Welcome to the MPulse Basic Training webinar. My name is Todd Boxberger. On behalf of MPulse Software, Inc., we want to thank you for your business and express our appreciation for your interest in learning how to use this program. My goal is to teach you how to use MPulse by building a work order. In that process, we will learn some system specifics. We'll learn how to log into the program, how to navigate around in the system, navigate around on records, and then we'll go ahead and talk about the orientation of a work order. From there, we'll talk about what components are commonly linked to the work order and how to build those components to support your work order process. After that, we'll get into how to initiate a work order using the maintenance requesting system and also using the maintenance scheduling system. When the work orders are initiated, we'll learn how to prepare them for distribution to your technicians and also for the reports that you will eventually run to make decisions. Once the work orders are prepared, we will learn the different methods that those work orders can be distributed to your technicians. Throughout all of that, we'll be going in and out of management tools where we can learn how to enable different features to support our workflows and to simplify our work process.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for that introduction, Todd. So this basic training webinar is going to be a collaborative effort. The content going forward throughout this video is going to be made up of different video clips that cover the major topics throughout the system. This is going to allow you to start, stop, or pause this video at convenient intervals. These video clips are also going to be located individually in the Let's Learn library. So let's get started with accessing MPulse 9.
First thing we need to understand about MPulse is how to access it. And it is a web-based interface. So all you need is internet access and either Google Chrome browser or a Mozilla Firefox browser. You can find MPulse.
Exactly. So easy to access. So if you're a hosted customer using our application hosting services, you just type in www.impulse9.com and it'll bring up this login page. If you're a locally hosted customer, your IT department is going to have that URL for you to access MPulse.
Either way, it's just a website and it takes you to this logon page where you can enter your username, your password. The way we license our product is by concurrent user license, which essentially means we don't care how many people you give access to your program. We pay attention to how many people who are logged in at the same time. When I do log into MPulse with my username and password, MPulse is going to check out what user group I am a member of, and that user group is what's going to determine what I'm able to see and what I'm able to do within the system. I'm going to log in to get started. So again, MPulse is checking out who I am, what user group I'm a member of. My user account has a predetermined menu to load at login. We're going to learn how to set that up today. So I'm landing in a screen that's called the Maintenance Advisor, which is a dashboard of information for the person who is looking at it.
Our next topic is the Help section. This can be critical for your implementation and use of MPulse.
If I choose the Help section, I have access to the content. I have access to the table of contents. I have an index. I have a glossary, and then I have a searching tool where I can search the contents. Also in the Help section, I have access to this technical support contact information where the support portal link is here for me. And again, the link to this recording will be available in the portal, and other resources to help you are available in the portal. But there's a whole lot of help here and resource for you. And this is accessible in the Help section.
Next up is MPulse terminology. Having a working knowledge of MPulse terminology is going to help you learn the system and communicate effectively with the MPulse support team. Most of these terms will be addressed at the record level, but first we need to learn how to navigate the system to find the record areas. There are three primary ways. If I haven't navigated to a record during this logged in session, I can use the main menu, which displays all of the major menus that categorize submenus, otherwise known as record areas. Main menu, major menus, submenus. The second method of navigation I can use to find a record in an area that I have not recently accessed is the global search. I can manually type in a value or scan it in with barcodes or quick response codes. This will show the specific record I'm searching for, and other records that are associated with my search value. Finally, I can use this trail of breadcrumbs that shows me the areas I've navigated to since I've been logged in. Now that we're in a record area, let's talk about what a record is. In MPulse, we want a record for any item or activity that we want to track or manage. Information in MPulse is stored on records. The way information is stored on records is by entering it into fields. Some of these fields are string data or free text fields where I can type values in. Some fields are drop-down lists. Others are calendar fields. There are various other types of fields on the records like numeric, currency, and checkboxes, to name a few. The information we put in these fields will be our primary source for management reporting. The next term I learned about is label. Label is any text that displays in the interface. I learned in another Let's Learn video how I can change the labels to fit the language of our company. The fields on every record are divided and categorized into sections. I can access these sections at the top of the record using these labels, or I can scroll down the page to the different sections. The next terminology phrase packs a lot of bang for its buck since it's a 3-in-1, and that's edit, cancel, save. Right now, my record is in what's called edit mode, where information can be entered. Here, I can save my changes or cancel out of edit mode. When a record's not in edit mode, I will find the edit pencil icon between the add, copy, delete, and print icons. Notice again, when I put this in edit mode, it converts back to the options to save or cancel. We're able to put the entire record into edit mode, or we can put individual fields in edit mode. Either way, I have to save or cancel to move on. Two other very important terms relate to how the record area presents itself. On the right side of the record area, we see the form view of the record. This is where we can link and unlink records to this record. The entirety of the record can be managed in the form view. Over to the left, we see the list view, which is just a list of the records in this record area. The list view can be hidden, or it can be maximized. The list view area is where we can build and save customized list view layouts that can be displayed in the list view when we need it. The last term is required field. A required field is a field that needs to be populated before a record can be saved, converted, or closed. The only required fields that MPulse enforces by default are the top two fields on every record, most commonly labeled ID number and description. On the Human Resources record, this label will read name. These two fields require data before a record can be saved and created. Bonus, we only have to manually populate one of these fields, since the ID number is automatically generated by the system. Now that we speak MPulse's language, let's talk about record management. This is a fairly large topic that's going to cover manually adding, copying, and deleting records, utilizing the print function, creating list view layouts, and label, list, and field management.
To start, I will add a record. This can be done by clicking on the plus symbol located at the top right corner. I will need to give a description to this work order. Once I have given that name, I have the option of pre-filling out other fields. In this example, I will just save. Besides adding a work order, we can also talk about copying this work order. When I press the copy button, as you can see, a secondary test work order copy, or work order number 2, has been created. If I have created this work order in mistake, or I want to remove a work order, I can come over to the third button, which is the delete button. When I press this button, I will be prompted to delete the selected record.
It's also important to remember that you can control who can add and or delete records under the user group settings in Management Tools.
I have multiple work orders that I actually need to print out to a form and hand to my technicians. So I'm going to go ahead and print those out. by clicking on the print icon. And under form view, I want the work order form, but I want to include data from my current lookup. So this is the list that I have currently on here. I could do current record, or I could have all records, but that's going to print out all of my history, not just my current lookup. Say OK, and now it will generate the forms for each of my work orders.
I'm going to use work order records to build my new list view layout. I'll get there by using my main menu, work order records. Now that I'm in the record area, I'll see that there's a list view of records on the left-hand side of the screen. I also see the name of the list view layout at the top of the list view. The default list view layout in every record area is ID and description only. This layout cannot be modified or removed. However, I can use it to start building my own custom list view layout. I'm going to maximize my list view and start customizing my new list view layout. To be clear, the list view is the screen that the layout displays in. The list view layout itself is the customized list report that I'm going to build. I do that by coming up and using the Customize icon on the top of the screen. I need to give this list view layout a name. I do that by coming over and hitting the plus icon. I'll give this list view layout the name New Layout. Next, I'll save the name. Now I can begin customizing my list view layout by adding columns, setting color codes, building column summaries, and custom filters. Once this is done, I can apply the list view layout to the list view.
Awesome. Thanks for that explanation, Todd. So if we look at this example I have here, I have basically a picture of all of the options Todd just went through. I have a list view layout with multiple columns showing different information pulled from fields off of the work order record. I can also see that this list view has been color coded, and these color codes were based off of work order priority and due dates. At the bottom of the estimated hours column, I can see a column summary has been created, and this is showing me the average hours, the count, and the sum total of those estimated hours. And then finally, if I go back into Customize, you'll see that we've got some custom filters created that are showing just the work orders with a status of open or hold on this list view layout. The next 4 segments are on the topics of list management, label management, field security, and default user groups. These tools are very important in building workflows and setting up the interface for your different user groups.
I have a drop-down list here labeled checklist type that I'd like to manage the values for. Because my user group has the access rights to edit drop-down list, I will see at the bottom of every drop-down list this option labeled edit list values. This opens up the tool where I can edit the list. From here, I can select any of the lists available in this record area. But for now, I'm focusing on my checklist type. From here, I can either add new values, I can edit existing values, or I can delete existing values. To add new values, I simply select the Add icon, enter my value, option 1, and save. Let me try that again. Add, option 2, save. If I want to modify an existing value, I select that value and modify that value and save. If I want to remove that value, I select it and hit delete. It's removed. When I close out of edit drop-down lists, I see that value in my drop-down list.
I have these custom fields that I'd like to use. So instead of just keeping the field called custom field 3, for instance, or custom field 4, I will change that to checklist type. This is going to better communicate what I intend to use it for. I also want a tooltip, kind of like when I hover over this here, where I want that tooltip to appear whenever I hover over the text to further communicate my intent. So to do this, click on Management Tools, go to Customization, and go to Language. From there, go ahead and click on Record Area, and I want to select Work Order Records. That's where my custom field is. Once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and now select Custom Field number 4. And so now I'm going to click on Edit there. And like I said, I want to go ahead and rename custom field 4 to checklist type. Also, I want my tooltip to say, please select a checklist type. Now I have that information in there. Go ahead and save that. And now I can go back over my work order records using my breadcrumbs. And now I have checklist type.
Our next topic is field management. This is heavily used in things like customization and setting permissions. A prime example here would be setting the loaded labor rate on the employee record to no access for those user groups who don't need to see that information.
I have this field here labeled checklist type, and I need to manage the field security so the right users have access to it. And for those users, I'd like to make this a required field to ensure that it gets populated. I manage field security by going to my main menu, Management Tools, Security Setup, Field Security. From here, I pick the record area where the field is that I need to manage the security for, Work Order Records. Now I select the field that needs to be managed. Once the field is selected, the user groups display. This is where I manage the field security for each user group. I put the area into edit mode. And for my user group, the MPulse managers, we need full access to this field. We also need to be able to edit the drop-down list. I want to make this field required for my user group to ensure that it gets populated. My access options are full read and write access, read only, or no access. My technicians have no access to this field. Let's save our changes. Now that I've navigated back to my work order record, I see that my checklist type is blank. If this field were in edit mode, and I attempted to save this record with no value in the field, I would be reminded that this is a required field, and I would need to populate it with a value before it can be saved.
We got a sneak peek of user groups in the Field Security section of Management Tools. Let's take a minute to talk about the default user groups in MPulse.
As I'm beginning my MPulse implementation, I realize that I need to create employee records for any person who needs to log into MPulse for any reason, and also for those that need to be assigned to work orders. For people who need to log into MPulse, I need to create a user account. I do that on the employee records, and employee records can be found under my human resource menu, employee records. So in the employee records, I have this account section where I would establish a username, a password, and what we're going to be focusing on today are the user groups. So the default user groups were intended to support these scenarios. The first group I want to highlight is the System Manager group. The System Manager group has full access rights and full functionality rights to the entire program. However, this group cannot be modified. I cannot turn records off for this group. I cannot turn sections of records off for this group or fields off for this group. I cannot remove this group from my database. It will always be there, and it will always be the same. Because of that, this is not typically connected to your day-to-day power users of the program. For those types of users, we have created a user group we call the MPulse Manager group. Again, this group has full access rights and full functionality rights like the System Manager. However, this group can be modified. So I can turn off records that I'm not needing. I can turn off sections of records that I'm not needing, and also turn the fields off that are not relevant to my day-to-day usage of the program. The next group I want to highlight here is a Maintenance Engineer group. This is typically connected to your technician types, the individuals that need to log into MPulse, find their work orders, complete their work orders, and possibly create a work order for something they've done on the fly that they weren't yet assigned to. Next is the Maintenance Requester group. This group has very limited access. They essentially can log into the system, land on the request page, fill it out, and submit it. They can check the status of the request, but that's typically the extent of their involvement with MPulse. And finally, we have the Data Reader group. The Data Reader group would typically be connected to your upper level management that doesn't necessarily need to know how to use MPulse, but when they do log into the program, they want to read the information that's relevant to their decision making. They commonly would have a dashboard set up with information that is relevant to their decision making. So once we establish the appropriate user group for this user account, now this user can log in and MPulse will know what they can see and what they can do throughout the program.
Thanks for that, Todd. That's a great explanation of user groups, and it's the perfect transition to our next topic, which is adding new users.
So I have a new technician that I want to create an employee record for that needs to log in and find and complete work orders. Now remember, you want to have an employee record for any person that needs to log into MPulse for any reason.
Great point. And I think it's important to mention that we also want an employee record for anyone who will be assigned to work orders.
In order to add this user, first I would go and click on the plus sign to add that new record, and then I would go ahead and give that record a name. Once I've done that, I have a few key critical components I want to add in as well, like the loaded labor rate and also the work email address. Going over to the accounts section, I want my technician to log into MPulse, so I need to configure his logon name, add a password, select language if necessary. I'm going to select the menu to load it logon as work order records so that he goes directly to the work order records. And also I'm going to associate his group with maintenance engineers so he has the proper permissions in MPulse.
Okay, everyone. So far, we've talked about navigating the system, navigating and managing records. We've looked at creating a user account and the importance of those user groups. Now let's take all of that information and move into the work order record. The work order records is one of the most important areas since it's the heartbeat of the program. Most of your information will eventually streamline into the work order record, and most of your management reports will come from the information on the work order record. With that in mind, it's really important to understand the layout and the logic behind these work order records. So let's move on to our next topic, orientation of a work order. We want a work order for any activity we need to manage or report against. In the General section, we have the different status options. Open is for active work orders. We're aware of these and they're on our to-do list. Hold is for those that are waiting on something, parts, approval, etc. As an MPulse manager, I can determine these hold reason values. Canceled typically means the work order was initiated and was not completed for whatever reason, but we want the history and intent. Having this history is the big difference between canceling and deleting a work order record. The final status is closed. A closed work order is when the job has been completed and all necessary details used for reporting have been captured. This record is sent from our active list to our history list. If the work order was initiated from a maintenance request record, these fields will populate the request ID and the name of the requester. The work order type is where I can designate what kind of work is being done. Using work order group, we can further categorize this work order activity. Ultimately, both of these are drop-down lists that I can manage, and if I need to, I can change any of these labels to better speak our organization's language. The work order priority is where our sense of urgency about this job can be communicated. By default, this field directly affects the due date, which we use to indicate when this work order needs to be done. We'll see the name of the person who created the work order record automatically populated in the originator field. Planning values are auto-populated depending on how the work order was initiated. Any work order generated from the schedule maintenance records are automatically marked as planned. If that's not enough options, I do have 4 custom fields I can relabel and use as necessary. The work order information section is where the core components of the work order are linked. Each of these areas has its own ellipsis where we can link, scan, unlink, and view details. These components are the maintenance task record, which brings with it details like estimated hours, crew size, task instructions, and safety procedures. The asset record, which brings details like department, location, cost center, and system. Meter details will also follow the asset if applicable. The personnel record is where I can link my employees and/or vendors, as well as enter the time it took to complete the job. And lastly, the inventory record, where I can link the parts, pieces, oils, and greases, and the associated quantities I used to get the job done. The financial section reflects the associated costs for this activity, including total cost. If we need to link pictures or documents, we can do so in Media. And if we need to add more information about this activity, we can enter it into the comments over to the right. Once all necessary information is entered into the work order, my maintenance technicians can mark this job complete and populate a completion date here. When I'm ready, I come to the financial section to close this work order and send it to history for reporting. Our next topic is components of a work order. These are task, asset, personnel, and inventory. We've already covered personnel earlier in this webinar, so here we will be diving into task, asset, and inventory. The maintenance task records is the area of the program where we can store our task instructions or the activity we'll do on a work order. To locate the maintenance task records, you go to the main menu, Work Orders, Maintenance Task Records. The system comes with 3 default generic tasks that are auto-assigned to the work order records depending on how the work order is initiated. We have more specific tasks we need to build for our recurring activities that are going to require details unique to that task, like this quarterly sprinkler system service. I can add information into my maintenance task records like crew size and estimated hours. The estimated hours are for the work order overall. For example, if the scope of work will take 2 employees 2 hours each, my crew size will be 2 and the estimated hours will be 4. I can also add the work order priority on the maintenance task record, and it follows over to the work order. Similarly, I can repurpose these custom fields, and the values follow to the work order as well. We have unlimited text in the task instructions and safety procedures, so we can be as detailed as we need to be. Using the media section, I can add things like pictures, manuals, or checklists. On the inventory section, I can link any parts, pieces, oils, or greases I know I'll need to get the job done. Using the comments section, I can add any special information about this task. All of the information I put into these 3 sections will follow the task to the work order record. Now that I've created a robust maintenance task record, I just need to link it to my work order record or scheduled maintenance record. Once that happens, I can see all of the information I entered has come over to the work order. On the General section, I can see the work order priority is populated. Over on the work order information section, in the task details, I can see my crew size, estimated hours, task instructions, and safety procedures. We can also see the inventory I added to the maintenance task records is here. Moving to the media section, I see that manual that we uploaded to our task record. And finally, here are those comments from the task record.
I discovered how to construct asset records to help complement the work orders and feed the reports for my organization. If I click on Capital Assets, I'll see the different asset types that are available to us. We have equipment records, building records, room records, ground records, and finally, vehicle records. I found that critical fields that I can connect to asset records are available to us regardless of the asset record type. I'm going to go ahead and use equipment records as my example. All of the critical fields except for meter readings are available and consistent on every asset record type. Things like ID, description, and the global fields of location, system, and department are some examples of critical fields that are available to us on every asset record type. I've also discovered some information that will follow through to the work order once we attach this piece of equipment. Any meter readings or anticipated usage that we've entered for the purposes of a meter-based schedule will fall over to the work order, as well as any inventory that we've linked ahead of time. So now when we use the More menu and go to Procedures to create a new work order, we'll notice that all of the information that we just entered on that asset record will follow over via Work Order Information and the More Details button next to the asset assigned to the task. Here we have our global fields again of department, location, and system. We also have the meter information that followed over from this particular asset. And now, when we go to link inventory to this work order, it's going to show us the first few items that we went ahead and linked to the asset ahead of time. Now I'm able to run reports such as work order by location, or total cost of maintenance by department, or planned versus unplanned work orders by system.
Awesome. Thanks for that explanation. Global fields were mentioned briefly on the asset segment of this webinar because they're directly associated with your assets. These fields can potentially be really important, so we're going to go into more details. Like we mentioned just a little while ago, the global fields are location, system, and department, and there's also a fourth global field called cost center, which is available in the advanced and enterprise editions of MPulse. So let's take a look at each one of these global fields and talk about the logic behind them. First, we've got location, which is meant to be a general or just high-level view of where your assets can be found. Next is system, and this represents the process that the asset is connected with. So think of something like a production line. Third, we've got department, which represents the department that the asset supports. And then finally, we've got that cost center, and this represents the budgetary charge area for the asset. Again, this is only available in the advanced and enterprise editions. So all four of these fields are drop-down fields, and they're considered global fields because no matter where we see them in the program, they'll have the same field labels and the same values to choose from. Again, they're populated on the asset record, so anytime the asset is linked to a scheduled maintenance record or ultimately a work order record, the information populated in these global fields is going to follow that asset to the work order. To access our inventory records, I go to the main menu, Inventory, then Inventory Records. In the inventory records, we start by entering a brief description of our part. In the General section, we can enter the group for categorizing and searching. I can also enter the last price paid here. This value will factor into the total cost of maintenance for the work orders it's assigned to. I can enter the manufacturing part number here for informational purposes. Finally, we can repurpose these custom fields to add any information we think is important, like bin or shelf numbers. In the Where Used section, I can manually link the assets this part is used on. Now if I want to see what work orders this inventory has been used on, or what's currently open that will use the inventory, I can go up to the More menu. Here I have these great quick view reports to get that information. Next up is work order initiation. How do we get the work order started? Ultimately, there are 4 ways, 2 of which we've already covered. One is to manually add the work order record, which is done like any other record in the system. And the second is by using the More menu and Procedure to create a work order, which can be done on any of the components of the work order. In this topic, we're going to focus on the other 2 avenues of work order initiation via the maintenance request records and scheduled maintenance records. We'll start by building a maintenance request form, then we'll move on to managing the maintenance requests. We'll finish up this topic by building and managing scheduled maintenance records for your preventative maintenance programs. I'm logged in as an MPulse manager, and I've already built a form that will help me view and process the maintenance requests that are being submitted throughout our company. This form is still way too much detail for our requesters that simply need to fill out a form and submit their maintenance requests. The facility group only needs a few fields and to provide comments to explain their need. The operator group, on the other hand, needs to provide us with much more detail pertaining to their need, so I've included more opportunity for them to clarify their requests. Details like failure code, reason code, specific asset, and the inventory that's needed to address the issue they're bringing to our attention. As an MPulse manager, I'm able to build these forms because my user group has access to the tools to make the necessary changes to accomplish this goal. I'm able to navigate to Management Tools, Security Setup, Group Setup to first address these 2 user groups. While managing the user group, I'm able to set access down to the section of the record, deciding if the user group needs full access, read-only, or no access to a section of the record. I can also determine if the requester group needs to be able to link assets and inventory to the maintenance request record. Once that's dialed in, I stay in Management Tools, Security Setup, but now I navigate to Field Security to further clean up my maintenance request forms so the requesters only see the fields that are relevant to what they're needing to communicate. I select the record area Maintenance Request Records, and then select the field that I need to set security against. Now I can decide what user groups need full access, read-only, or no access to the selected field on the maintenance request records. I start by having a custom list view layout that only shows me pending maintenance requests. This positions me to only see requests that have not been converted to work orders. Once they are converted to work orders, these records are filtered over to my request history list view layout. So using these list view layouts, I could have a list for requests that I've converted to work orders, a list for those I haven't converted yet, and a list for requests waiting on something, like a reply back from the requester, approval, etc. On the right side of the screen, I have the form view for my maintenance requests. Here I can see what the requester included in the General section, like location and specific asset. In the Request Approval section, I can see what's been approved and by whom. I can potentially see linked inventory and pictures of the issues the requesters are requesting. Over to the right, I'll see any comments that have been included to further clarify the requester's issue. Back in the General section, I'm happy to see the requester has populated their email, since I've set up my system to automatically send out notifications that update the requester with the status of this requested activity throughout its lifecycle. If I want to connect more people to the notifications pertaining to this request, I can use this secondary email field. I can select emails from my personnel records that have email addresses populated, or I can manually add email addresses of another individual or group I'd like to include. If I've received a vague maintenance request and need more details before converting this request to a work order, I can click this Reply to Requester button. This brings up a templated message that can be changed case by case or more permanently customized in Management Tools. As soon as I send this message, the status of the maintenance request changes from pending to waiting for reply. If I don't want to wait for the requester to update this request, I can click the Quit Waiting button, which will allow me to manually process this request. If this request has no way of passing muster, I can click this Cancel Request button and send a nice cancellation message, something like, "Don't ever use my requesting system again." Or I can just convert this request to a work order. This process can be done automatically, but I prefer reviewing these maintenance requests and manually converting from here.
I have an asset that needs to be checked monthly, so I set up a scheduled maintenance record that will generate the monthly work order. First, I need to add the new scheduled maintenance record, and I do this by clicking on the Add button. Once I've done that, go ahead and give your scheduled maintenance record a description. Once I've done that, now I can go ahead and assign the task. In this case, I have a task set up for that check. I will then also add that asset to my scheduled maintenance record, that is. Any personnel potentially that might be available. If not, then I'll leave that blank. And also any inventory I might be using. Once I have all that in there, now click on the Scheduled section to add further detail. Work order priority will carry over to the work order, so you want to add that. Work order type, if there's any sort of work order type you're using, and any other fields that you may be using. By default, this schedule will be enabled. Next, I need to decide my time-based attribute here. So either it's going to be a floating schedule, or I can select a fixed schedule. In this case, it's monthly, so I need to have it defined as a monthly reoccurrence pattern every 1 month. I could also have it fixed where on the first Monday, potentially, of every month, schedule this. I like floating because I can base it off of the last done date. If time passes and for some reason this wasn't done on time, maybe it was done a week later, I don't want it to be done in the next 3 weeks. I want it 1 month out from when it was last done. Fixed is regardless of the last time you did it. So you could have done it mid-month, and then the first Monday of the next month, 2 weeks later, you're going to have to do it again. For me, that works well. For others, it might not.
Both maintenance request records and scheduled maintenance records need to be converted to work order records. This can be done automatically by the system, or you can manually convert these. Let's take a look at how to convert a scheduled maintenance record.
When you want to see what schedules have become due, go to Scheduled Maintenance, open Scheduled Maintenance, and then from there, you can now view the date range of what will become due or what is due. For instance, on the today, I have 2 schedules. I can also look at what's overdue, what's due tomorrow, this week, this month, next week, next month, or if I want to have a custom range, let's say for instance the first half of the year, I could select that as well. When I've selected my range, then go ahead and look at your scheduled maintenance records that have become due. For instance, I have 2 in here. So for the one that I have scheduled for today, I would want to click on that and then click on Convert to Work Order. Once I have selected that, go ahead and say yes to Are you sure? And then yes, you want to view it. And now I have a open work order that is ready for my technician. That was the manual process. I could go into scheduled maintenance options and actually automate the process.
That's a great idea. To access the scheduled maintenance options, we want to go to the main menu, Management Tools, Workflow, and then down to Scheduled Maintenance Options.
From here, I could enable automatic scheduled maintenance conversion and say, yes, I want to convert on the due date. And now when the scheduled maintenance record has become due, it will automatically convert to a work order.
Now that we know how to initiate a work order, we need to know what to do with the work order going forward. Our next topic is going to cover work order distribution and completion.
So Terry can find his work order, and all he's got to do, he either gets that via email, or you print out that form and you hand it to him, or he logs into MPulse periodically through his day and he finds the work orders he's associated with. He logs in, he sees this work order, he sees that it's open, he sees when he needs to have it completed by, he sees your priority here, and now all he needs to do is put his time against this work order. So he puts this into edit mode. He says I spent 2 hours on this work order. Now remember, if you are wanting more asset details captured against this forklift, you have access to that right here in the asset details. And here, if you're interested in putting codes, failure codes, reason codes, repair codes, result codes on this work order, if you want to enter downtime for that asset, you can do all of that in the asset details portion of the work order. If they need to update meter readings, that can be done right here in the asset details as well. I'll go ahead and do that by clicking into the edit icon for the meter reading. Come on down to the meter itself. I'll go ahead and take this up to 2,700 hours, and I'll say that the meter reading date was captured today. Okay, and then save that reading. So all of that information can be captured against the asset details. I close out of that, and I know that it is there for my reporting. So I have those asset details. I have the labor hours. I have the inventory and all of their quantities. I see how that's being reflected over in the financial section of the work order. And when I'm done, if I am a technician that may not be able to close work orders, my end of the job might be right here, and that's selecting work orders completed but not closed. And that's it. It also can just notify the manager who needs to close that out, and they can come in and just close out that work order.
Our last topic is information management, more commonly referred to as reporting. The tool we'll use for this topic is the Maintenance Advisor dashboard, where you can display different reports in the form of charts, gauges, and list view layouts. You can find more information on constructing each of these report types through individual videos or the starter kit, which are both available in the support portal. To set my Maintenance Advisor up, I click the gear icon in the top right corner of my dashboard. I have the option to select charts and gauges or configure my dashboard. Right now, I'll select Configure Dashboard. Here I can find and select list view layouts. I start by choosing what record area the list view layout is stored in. Then I just click on the list view layout I want displayed on my dashboard. This will move over to my Maintenance Advisor Layout section, indicating it's been added. I can also build and select media widgets. I'm going to put some of my preferred vendor websites on my dashboard. I click this arrow, then click the chain link icon to upload the media I want. Once I link my media, I select the thumbnail, then click the Add Media to Maintenance Advisor icon. This will populate the icon picture at the bottom of my media, indicating it's been added to my dashboard. I can click Dashboard to see the widgets I've already placed. Now, I want to select graphic reports to place on my Maintenance Advisor. To do this, I come back over to the gear icon. This time, I'll select Charts and Gauges. This will take me to my Report Widgets area. I can also navigate to this area by using the main menu and selecting Report Widgets. From here, I can select the charts or gauges I want on my dashboard by clicking the Edit pencil, then checking the box next to Place on Dashboard, here. I can also do this from the list view layout by selecting the Edit icon and putting the check in the box under the Place on Dashboard column. To return to my dashboard, I come up to the breadcrumbs trail and click Maintenance Advisor. I can resize and/or rearrange the widgets on my dashboard to fit my needs. As a bonus, these widgets are constantly updated on an adjustable interval that defaults to 5 minutes. That gives me almost real-time information about my maintenance operations. Okay, everyone, that wraps up our basic training webinar. If you have any questions on any of the topics we covered in this video or any other topics, feel free to reach out to us. You can email us at support@impulsesoftware.com, or you can give us a call at 800-944-1796. We also have some really great self-help resources on our support portal, which is support.impulsesoftware.com. Again, on behalf of Todd and myself and MPulse, we want to thank you so much for your business and for being a part of this webinar.